So good morning, I am Sandy DeWald, and I will be your instructor today for the workshop. We're going to be covering the power of generative AI and how it can help you in your business. There's a lot of buzz, a lot of hype, a lot of talk about this technology, but what's the real implications? How can you actually execute that in your business to help you do things in your business and not just, oh, it's another tool, I don't understand it, either push it away entirely and not look at it, or use it in the wrong way, because it does have very specific use cases that I think it's the best use case for small businesses. Some things people are using it for may not actually be the best use for it. So let's click in here. There we go. So first one, as Michelle's checking people in, this should be interactive. So at any point, if you want to ask a question, you can put it in the chat or put it in the Q&A. Michelle, my fantastic assistant, will be helping me monitor that. You can also unmute. I know there's going to be a lot of people on the workshop today, so it may be a little hard to unmute. And if you're kind of hesitant about jumping in and asking your question live, that's fine. I don't mind interruptions. You can totally do that, or you can raise your hand and Michelle will be monitoring that and kind of stop me as well. So first I want to talk a little bit about SCORE. If you're not familiar with SCORE, it's a volunteer organization. So there is the National SCORE organization, and then there's the Nashville chapter. And Michelle and I are both part of the Nashville chapter, but we're also part of the bigger umbrella of SCORE. And so it has a huge amount of resources. SCORE, the organization, the national chapter, has workshops that they do online. And then the Nashville, our group, our part of the overall organization, offers workshops and mentoring. We are a nonprofit, volunteer organization. So I'm a volunteer, Michelle's volunteer. Everyone you meet with SCORE will be a volunteer. We partner with the SBA, but we are not part of the SBA. We are a separate institution from them, but we do work with the Small Business Administration and provide kind of educational and mentoring, along with, they provide other services through that organization. So one thing that Nashville SCORE and even SCORE overall does really well is mentoring. I don't know, does anyone have a SCORE mentor right now? Maybe you can put into the chat or the Q&A, whatever you have access to, if you actually have a mentor right now. A mentor, if you don't, think of a mentor as like your business coach. So it's a free service that we offer. You want to be able to pick a local mentor. So they're going to be here in the Nashville area because we're the Nashville chapter. But they're there to kind of be your coach. There's, they bounce ideas, you can bounce ideas off of them. They have a great and broad base of knowledge about business, and they have a wide range of expertise, and they're going to be there to kind of help you. You're still making decisions for your business. They're not going to make the decisions for you, but they can be that sounding board. They can be the person that kind of goes, oh, well, I don't know if you thought about this, this, and this, and kind of look at, kind of helping you. If you're struggling with a specific question, they'll be there to kind of help you through that. They also can bring in subject matter experts, because our mentors have a wide breadth of knowledge, but maybe you have a really specific legal question. Well, then they would bring in kind of a legal subject matter expert to answer that specific question for you, because they may not have that technical expertise in that area, but we have a wide variety of resources that can help you in your business. One thing, again, I talked about, we're here today at the workshop. So SCORE education is a big part. So it's that mentoring and education. So we have regularly scheduled workshops, and then we also have kind of one-time lunch and learns and maybe special events that we offer. So some workshops are offered every single month. Some are offered every quarter, every 2 to 3 months. And then some are kind of like one-offs and kind of special events that we do. So again, now that you're on our website, or you can check for all of our upcoming events. You'll be getting emails about events coming out to you too. So look through this, because we have a lot of resources available education-wise that can help you in different aspects of your business.
Sandy?
So, oh yeah.
I just wanted to let you know that Mary Gano and Elena Tarver said they both have mentors.
Excellent. And hopefully you're having a good relationship with that mentor. Like I said, it's easy to sign up for a mentor. All you have to do is go to the Nashville, it's score.org/Nashville. You can see at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, and you can sign up for a mentor there. It takes like 5 minutes. And again, it's a free resource. And then the idea is that they match you up with the right person that's a good fit. So you have a very specific need from a mentor or a specific area, then put that in the request and they'll try to help you match up with the right person. Again, what I mentioned already, that I am a volunteer. I am not a mentor. What I am is a subject matter expert. I wouldn't be the one coaching you and meeting with you all the time, but I would be what your mentor would bring in for specific questions in specific areas. And then I also do some of the workshops because I just love this part of the education part of SCORE. So my background is in product development and product marketing. I've launched over 400 products to market, over 20 plus years of developing new products from concept, the entire life cycle, all the way through the development, concept, manufacturing, launching, and marketing, and consumer market research, all of that. I love that whole aspect of it. And so if you were trying to develop a physical product, then your mentor would bring me in as a subject matter expert. And then also in product marketing and some other areas, I also do a pricing workshop. I do a product development workshop, and then this new Gen AI workshop, because it's something for the last year, I've been really delving into this, taking courses, learning all I can about this to kind of see how it can help in business. So we're going to kind of get into the meat of it. I think is there a Q&A? Is there a question, Michelle? I think I saw something pop in there. I can see the little notifications, but I can't see what it is.
Oh, Brandon Hamilton wanted to let us know that he also has a mentor through SCORE.
Excellent. Perfect. Well, I hope you're having a great relationship with them. They will be there as much as you need them or as little as you need them. However you want them to work with you, then they're going to be that resource for you. So fantastic. And I highly encourage anyone, if you don't have a mentor today, to sign up for one, because they are a great kind of resource and sounding board for you. So we're going to talk about two different kinds of, we're talking about mainly one kind of AI, and you'll hear a lot of the term generative AI. And there's generative AI, which usually means text-based. So it's going to be focused on, the output will be written text. That's probably the biggest buzz I hear about that. Then there's also AI generated images and AI video. So those two separate things. They're all generative AI, but they kind of have two different use cases and two different focuses. And I think two different benefits, or really different applications or benefits for businesses. So generative AI, or text-based, is going to be, these are models. So think of AI as a model in the background, and it's designed to generate content. So it's going to learn from a set of data, and that training data is going to help it generate similar content to what it's been trained on. So that's what you hear. ChatGPT is probably the most common one, the most famous one that everybody's heard about. There's Google Bard, there's Microsoft Bing Chat, and there's another one, Anthropic Claude. So those are companies, and those are the kind of the names of the AI, the generative AIs that they have. And when you learn about one, it's very similar in how they work in all of them. So we're not going to go into each one and kind of talk about the differences, because there's hundreds. These are just the most top popular ones, but every day there are hundreds more of these models coming out. Some of them are based on ChatGPT and OpenAI, and they just put a different interface on top of it. Some of them are building their own models, and they're operating, again, very similar on the backside. So when you kind of learn one, you'll be able to apply that to all of them. AI generated images are where those models are trained to generate images. Again, those are two separate things. You can't go into ChatGPT and ask it to generate an image. That's not what that model is designed for. You would need to go into a different model to generate an image. So again, it's going to learn from a set of data, and it's going to create an image or modify an image based on patterns that it recognizes. And we all do everything on patterns. We have mental models of the world as humans, and that's what the AI is doing. It's training on a set of data, and it's creating kind of mental models or patterns around what that data means. The most common ones you probably hear for image AI is DALL-E, Mid-Journey, or Stable Diffusion. So those are kind of, again, separate. So if you wanted to generate an image, you can't go to ChatGPT. You would need to go to Mid-Journey or Dolly or Stable Diffusion to generate that. The focus of this workshop is going to be on generative AI, or the text base, because I think that's actually going to be the most beneficial for your business. Images are one thing, but you're going to get more bang for your buck and more benefits for your business on the generative AI. I think it's going to be actually more helpful to you in a business situation. We're going to kind of go through examples, and there's really a high quality free versions available. So there's a free version of ChatGPT, which is why it's probably the most popular. And then you go to the paid version and you get additional things at the paid version. You get plugins, you get, there's a lot of extra stuff you pay for, but the free version of ChatGPT or free version of some of these models are really very good. Maybe a year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, they weren't quite as good, but where they are now, that free version is really good, basically to get started. And then you can use the paid version if you kind of want to do that more advanced skill set, or you want to do other things with the model, then you need to get to the paid versions. I'm not going to focus so much on the AI generated images because I really don't think they're going to be that much. They're not going to be that helpful to you right now in a business. One thing is that they do function similar to the generative AI text that use their prompts. You have to write the text of what you want the image to be. The issue with AI images is that you have to usually be very descriptive. You have to really work that prompt or that input. It's much more detailed that you have to be to get the image. And I really think that right now for small businesses, you hear the word authenticity, which I kind of hate that word, but it's true in the sense that as a small business, your imagery around your business should be tied to you. It shouldn't be something that's an AI image has no relationship to your business. It needs to be, and there's been a trend of going away from like stock images for business. It needs to be you, it's your customers, it's your business, it's how you operate, it's, showing you. So that's where your customers can know, like, and trust you. So if your imagery is some faked AI image, I guess I'll say fake, or made up image, how's that reflective of your business? How do your customers get to know you? If it's the same thing why we have been going away from using stock images. You can tell when it's a stock image. You can tell when it's an AI generated image. And so I don't think right now that those are going to be the most powerful, or really I would rather have you learn generative AI as far as text and using it for the written and for content creation versus focusing on image AI. And really a lot of these tools are image AI is going to be integrated into other tools. So I wouldn't worry about going to Dolly and Mid-Journey and learning those, because those tools are actually being built into other ones that you probably use today. If you use Canva, the paid version, Image AI is built into that tool now. Adobe Firefly, if you use the Adobe suite, Adobe Firefly is part of that, and that's their image AI generator. So there's no reason to go to standalone ones. It's going to start being built into your current suite of graphic tools that we probably use today. The other thing is that this is changing. What it is today, from a year ago to today to 6 months from now. I mean, I'll probably be changing this presentation every single time I give it, just because there'll be updates going on so rapidly in this landscape as new tools, new capabilities, and just kind of how people are using the tools. It'll be really expanding. So we're kind of in that hype bubble, that curve going up. Eventually it'll kind of settle down, but new things are coming out all the time. So what's a generative AI? When I say generative AI or Gen AI, it's really a large language model. So you're going to hear LLMs or large language models. That's the model that when we interface with, it's sitting in the background. And I want to, instead of talking about it as artificial intelligence, I want to think about AI as augmented intelligence. It's more effective when it's combined with the human expertise and experience. It's not thinking. So these LLMs or these models, they're not thinking in the background. They're trained on a big set of data, and it's a predictive model. it's very strange to talk about it, but it's going to help how we create, but it's not going to replace humans. Don't worry about AI taking our jobs. What you should think about is AI, that's something that can use the AI tool will be more effective, but the AI itself is not going to start replacing people, replacing writers, and replacing humans. It's going to help us and augment how we create, but it's not going to replace us. So you will have these models can be standalone like ChatGPT, or they can be integrated into other software programs. You're seeing AI in like LinkedIn to help you write better posts. They're in Facebook, you have Facebook Llama. That's their AI tool that's going to start building into their platforms. So again, this can be by itself or integrated in other programs. You interface with the model through what's called prompts. And that's what we're going to cover prompt. There's a whole thing called, prompt engineering, where people are like going to school to study how to write better prompts. We're going to cover some structures that will help you write. Because again, think about a prompt as the input into the model. It's what you're telling the model to do. The key thing is that it's in a natural language. So it's not coding anymore, which is great, because that's kind of the key revolution, is that these models are now, you don't have to know software coding. We've had AI forever. We've had AI for years and years and years, but it's always needed to be coding to get the model to do anything. With this new interface, that lets us write natural language, just how we speak and talk, natural language to enter the input into the AI. What I would think of as AI is, think of it as your assistant. It's going to be a great helper to you. It's an assistant, but it needs direction. You can't just tell it, hey, go write me a blog post and let it go run and do it, because it's not going to understand that. If you told assistant that, they would go, about what and on what and who you talking to, what's going on, they would have no idea. So you need to give it direction, because I always think of it like back in the old, this is like old days in computer when it was like garbage in, garbage out in programming. So if you put garbage in the model and don't give it a good prompt, then you're going to kind of get garbage out, or kind of get average output. So if you told an assistant kind of like, oh, just go figure it out, then you're not really going to get a good result. Same thing. And the key thing about these models is that it's an iteration process. You're going to constantly be refining, and it'll give you an output and you're like, wow, that's not quite right. You'll go back and refine it, and it'll generate a new output. You'll go refine it. You'll go, oh, I should have added this in to be more detailed. So it's going to be an iterative process. It's not going to be, bang on the first time that you use it. So the key points are the models won't give you the same thing every single time. There's randomness built into the models, which sounds kind of odd, but it's the idea is that it's generating the output, but it'll slightly tweak it. If you asked it to prompt 3 times, it'll give you a slightly different one every time. The core might still be there, but it'll rephrase things. And so it's going to give you some randomness in your output. And it's never going to be perfect on the first time. So that's the key thing, is that you have to understand you're going to kind of iterate and prompt, modify, prompt again, modify, prompt again, and start kind of tweak the input so you get that output that you want. You're going to forget something the first time and go, oh, I wish I had put this in here. And you'll modify the prompt and say, okay, you gave me this, but wasn't quite tailored to what I'm looking for. I forgot, I should add this to give you more clarity. And then think to the data is, the models are built on backwards looking data. So there's a certain point in time, every model has stopped. It's a cutoff date of when they've stopped training. So for ChatGPT 3.5, the free version, it's September 2021. That's when the model stopped learning or training on any new data. So anything since that time, it won't understand or know about. It's looking, and every model is going to have a cutoff date. So every model is going to be backward looking. So if you truly needed some current knowledge that the model doesn't have, you're going to have to include that in your prompt. So that's just something to think about. Shouldn't affect things too much, but it will, like September 2021, if you were looking for something and writing about COVID, the model may not have much information because it stopped before we were fully into COVID or afterwards, or the post effects of COVID. If you're writing a blog post, well, our models were not going to have that information to, in its training data, to even be able to pull from. So just kind of think about if you need something that's current, then the model won't really have that data. And you need to give it to the model to consider it in its training, in its prompt back, in its output to you. The benefits of AI. So there's so much hype about this technology, but it really is going to have benefits. People are still experimenting with it, figuring it out, but there are some key benefits you can see right now. And one's just productivity. Think about not starting from a blank page. If you're trying to write a blog post, well, it can give you a good first draft. It can summarize things for you. If you had an article and you wanted to say, give me the 3 key points out of this, it can do that for you in like 2 seconds. It's very good at kind of cutting out some of that tedious tasks and kind of giving you productivity, giving that starting point. And I really think of AI, and the best benefit is that it's going to give you kind of something to start from. It's harder to write something from a blank page than to take something existing and tweak it and modify it and tailor it to your customer and your business. So that's just going to be saving you time doing that. It can summarize, it can create outlines for you, it can build checklists. So there's a lot of things that can kind of give you that framework and starting point. It can reduce tedious tasks. So if you have to write like quizzes or a survey, summarizing an article, if you had to go through and pull out all the points, or your assistant had to go through, pull out all the points, create a little summary, create a little, here's the bullet points of the key things. It can do that for you in seconds, where you had to sit down and kind of have to go through it. If you need to follow a certain template, like say if you go, give me the template for a case study, then it would give you the blocks already. And you can just start plugging that in. You wouldn't have to go through and go, okay, what's this? And I had to do this. Oh, I forgot this section here. Can do all that kind of for you, those kind of tedious tasks. It can also do things like, if you had to write like, some writing that we do is pretty generic in the sense of it's the thank you email for purchasing a product, or it's a registration email, like when you signed up for the score. Instead of thinking and having to write the whole registration email up, just say, write me one of these and have it give you that kind of, there's nothing creative about that writing, it's the facts. So it can do those kind of tedious tasks writing for you, those kind of emails, or a thank you page or something like that, landing page, where it's kind of like, okay, I've got to write it. It doesn't have to be super creative. It needs to kind of have all the information in there, and it needs to be, formatted right and have all the points, but it doesn't have to be something I really want to sit, but I have to sit down and write. It would take me time. AI can do it for me. It can also provide an independent check. So you can use it for grammar, spelling errors. You can say that you wrote something and you're like, is this really is it the clear, is it very clear to somebody? Sometimes we write things and it's full of jargon. It can check for those technical things. It can approve your writing. You can say, here's something, right? How would you rewrite this in, for this audience? And then it can kind of rewrite that for you. You can also ask it to look at your writing and say, am I missing anything? Are there points in here that you would think, as this type of person I'm writing for, am I missing anything in this blog post? And it can go, oh, well, you've got these 3 things, and maybe you should talk about this 4th thing that you're not talking about. So it can kind of check you. Like again, like an assistant, if somebody else were reviewing your writing, it can give you feedback in that way. Again, it can inspire better problem solving and creativity. It can have you make sure you're talking to the right audience. Sometimes we have biases in our writing, and it can bring out different alternatives, and you go, oh, I hadn't thought about that. And it can say, oh, that's a really good point I forgot to make. You can ask it to find flaws in your writing. You can ask it to be a critique of your writing. You can say, hey, here, I wrote this. What do you think? What am I missing in this article? Or what am I missing when I write this up? You can ask it to be different. We'll talk about personas, but you can ask it to be different target audiences or different perspectives. And you can ask it to generate, if you were this type of customer or this type of customer, what would you think about this? Or how would you view this if you were these types of different customers, especially if you have different target customers that you're serving in your business. You might want to say, how would this person or this persona see it versus this person? How would I talk to this person versus this person? And you can actually do different, you can rewrite things from different perspectives based on different target audiences. And then you can generate ideas faster. So the key thing is that you can test ideas, you can try different versions, you can say, well, what if I wrote it this way, or what if I wrote it this way? And because it's so quick, it can give you that output, and you can kind of see, oh, well, this is, I don't really like how this is worded over here, but I like how this is over here. You can pull pieces and parts together from different versions that it gives you. And you can really modify different content for different platforms. So you can say, well, if I have a blog post and I want to write 3 tweets from it. Well, you can say, I'm running give me 3 tweets for Twitter or X. And it'll give you in that format, then you say, give me 3 Facebook posts. Whoop, then it can pull from that same blog post. Because again, Twitter is going to be a different format than Facebook is going to be a different format from Instagram or a TikTok or a video, so it can start looking at and rewriting based on the different platforms in your social media marketing. So the other thing so when you hear Chat GPT, you're like, what's the GPT stand for? All of these are generative pre-trained transformers. That's the GPT. That's part of the model in the background. That's actually how it works. It's the structure of the model. And this transformer is the big revolution about why these models can scale up to so big. We've had them in the past, but they've been very small. But the transformer piece let the models get huge and can scale up to, I mean, they were trained on billions and billions of text out there in the market. That's transformative, because in the past they were just really small and they couldn't get big. What generative AI does is understands a relationship between words. It's good at remembering word and word order and word patterns. It's not thinking, it's not generating from new, like it's not making it from scratch, but it's a predictive model. So it's trained on these billions of pages of text, and it's creating a probability matrix. It's saying, if you ask me this, it's saying the next sentence or the next word in this sentence is most likely going to be X. So it's predicting, I know it's very hard to understand, but it's kind of predicting the next word in the sentence. It's not thinking, it's saying based on everything I've seen, all the patterns, if you ask me X, I'm predicting this is the most likely response based on everything I've been trained on. So, and we do that as well. I mean, every time we have language patterns, we have syntax, we have, also all the grammar that you learned in school. That's a pattern. So it understands those patterns. It creates a probability. It has this huge matrix that says, okay, most likely the next word will be this. And that's what it gives back to you as an output. It sounds simple, but it's incredibly powerful. I mean, the fact that the model can do this so quickly and can give you and when you see the output, it's good. I mean, it's a good starting point. We'll say that. It understands it's the most likely next word to come in that sentence and what you want. Again, we don't understand everything about it on the back end, but that's because there's some randomness and there's flexibility in that model, because you can't write every rule for it. It has to understand and kind of create its own rules within that framework. But it's a very powerful tool in that predictive modeling. But just think about it being a predictive model. It's not creating and generating from scratch. It's learning patterns and building on those patterns. So if I were to say to you, I pledge allegiance to, everybody would think, what in our mental models, our next thing would be the flag. We wouldn't say a carrot, so we know that in our model, I pledge allegiance to the flag is the most next likely word in that sentence, not carrot. Same thing. Mary had a little, the next word 99% of us would think be lamb. It wouldn't be sports car. So the model is it's learned from everything, saying, oh, if you ask me, Mary had a little, my response will be lamb, because that's most likely the next thing that's most logical to answer, as opposed to sports car. So that's what it's doing. It's reading all these models of how we write, how we use language, the structure of language, and determining and predicting that the next word or the next word in that sentence will be X. So that was a lot, I know. I don't know if there's any questions in the chat, Michelle, but I was gonna kind of go on to what it's good for.
We are clear right now.
Okay, cool. So what is Gen AI good for? There are things it's used for that is good, and things that it's really not ideal for. And I would say, some of the best uses for Gen AI would be ideation and brainstorming. And I'm going to show some examples here in a minute. But it's that first draft, it's that not starting with a blank page. It's kind of saying, hey, give me something to start with, and then I can modify from that. Or it's give me 10 ideas for a blog post about X. It's kind of getting that brainstorming. If you had somebody else in the room with you and you kind of were bouncing ideas off each other, that's what AI is good for. Or I need to get that kind of messy first draft done, but if I can get it done and not have to take an hour to do it, I can do it in a couple of minutes with AI. Then I can better spend my time refining that first draft. Outlining list, give me an outline for a workshop about X, and it'll give you kind of a structure and a format. Or I'm doing an 8-week small group coaching program. What are some of the topic about X? What are some of the, give me a structure and outline for that. So you can kind of make sure you can kind of do, or a checklist, give me the checklist for the steps to do X. Then it can give you like all the things, and then you can make sure that you're not missing something. You go, oh yeah, that's right. That's a really good point to put 5, this point here in between 5 and 6. I should really put something in here about I'm missing this point. It's good at summarizing. So you can put text in there and say, give me the 3 key points out of this, or create the 4 bullets that are the highlights from this content. Instead of you having to go through and kind of pull it out and write them, get AI to do that for you. So summarizing. I've seen people take, articles, and we'll talk about length, but putting information there saying, write me a 1-page summary of this article. Okay, it'll give you that. It's great at doing that. Rewriting or editing. So you can put content in there, say, hey, rewrite this introduction section for me to be, tailored to this audience. Okay, so it'll take it and kind of rewrite it. Or give me other ideas, good, here's content, check the punctuation, grammar, and for this section here, make sure I'm doing it right. Because you might have things in there you've missed, or things you misspelled, or kind of could be clear. Sometimes it'll clarify things where you may have a block of text and it'll break it up into bullet points, or it'll give you kind of an intro, and then it'll kind of reformat that text to be easier to read by an end user. And then feedback. Oh, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Edward Pune wants to know, although it has a cutoff in its data, does it learn from questions you and others ask and its answers?
That's a good question, Ed. You know what? It says there's a button you can push, like a ChatGPT. There's a button that says, do not let the large language model use this for training. But in reality, if you don't tell it you don't want it to use it for training, it's going to use it for training, in the sense that it's going to keep, and then that's why you have the little thumbs up and thumbs down. So you're training the model that, oh, that was a good output, and that one wasn't so much. So you're training the model that way. I will talk a little bit, there's a slide at the end about legal issues and about proprietary or sensitive or confidential data. Don't ever put that into the AI, because even if you tell it not to use it, nothing, you don't necessarily know it's not using it. Let's just say that. So it's training, you're still training on it. You're still helping to train the model when you put information in and give it feedback on how well it's performing. But it's not going to take like if you put, say, some statistic that was for 2023, and you put it in your input into the model and say, in 2023, the population of X of Nashville was X, I don't know, and you needed that. it's not going to take that into its model as a new data point. So it's, but it'll, so it won't take it that way. But it will take how you structure and you rewrite things into the model and keep training on it. I don't know if that really answered your point, Ed, but we're going to get to legal here at the end of the presentation. So hopefully, and it's still a black box. We're still learning. There's still some things we're not quite sure about. I always think of it like, you know, anything you put on the internet and then you take down a website doesn't mean it's gone. You can go in the Google Wayback Machine and you can go back and find that internet page, even if you no longer, so nothing ever, it's still there somewhere. I'll just say that. And then the last one I want to talk about is feedback critique. So you can write something and then go, you can ask AI for, okay, ask it, pretend you're a critique of this article or this blog post I wrote. Give me feedback on what some strengths and weaknesses of it are. Give me feedback on, you know, missing points or key points that I've missed in this. So you can kind of, someone can point out to you like, hey, well, this is kind of a weak argument right here, or maybe you need more information in here. It can actually give you that feedback and critique of your writing as well, which is, so again, think of it as an assistant. If you had somebody that you were going, hey, look at this and give me some feedback, it can definitely do that as well. It's really amazing in the things that it can do, but there are things that you should not be using AI for, and people are using it every day. It's just really not the best tool. So I would say it's not ideal for, if you search, it's not a search engine. Just don't, if you're going to go to Google and search for something versus, oh, people are putting things in Chat GPT and searching for them in there versus going to Google. It's not a search engine. It's going to give you one output. If you put something in and say, give me, you know, the answer to something, it's going to give you one answer, but if you went and searched for it, you're going to get a variety of viewpoints or a variety of different, like if I said, you know, find me the best Mexican restaurant in Nashville, it's, you know, a search engine will give you some options for Mexican restaurants, and because you might go, oh, well, maybe I feel like this or this type or that type, or, you know, I need this, buy this in my house and this one is across town. And, you know, Chat GP would give you, all right, I'll give you one, here you go. And it's not going to give you kind of the breadth of things that you need for a search engine. It's also not going, so again, don't use it as a search engine, which people are using it for search engine all the time. It's like, use Google or Firefox or whatever the other ones are, you know, Microsoft Bing, whatever it is for your search engine, because that's still the best tool. It's designed for that function. The other thing, Chat GPTs, I wouldn't use it for research or sources or attribution. There's many cases where Chat GPT or any large language model, I'll say Chat GPT, but they all will do this. Well, they'll just make stuff up. They're not going to give you a primary source, or they'll, even if you asked it to give me the source where you got this information from, it'll make it up. Because it's predicting and giving you the next, oh, it's like, oh, well, this is the format of a website. Here's the website. They'll even provide like fake websites because it's predicting what you want, giving you an answer, but it shouldn't be where you're getting your research. And so if you need to know a specific fact and you need to make sure it's come from a credible source, go to a search engine and search. Don't use Chat GPT or any of these large language models for that. It's not their strength. They're just going to give you like, oh, well, here's the next predictive thing, but I'm not, and it'll be based on the information, but it's not going to give you reliable, credible sources. Or if it gave you a source, you should always check it and make sure it's for real, because many times it might not be. I also wouldn't use Gen AI for your final output, and there's many reasons for that, but it's a good first draft. It's a good getting started point, but it should not be your final. You shouldn't take the output from Chat GPT or any of these large language models and say, oh, good, this is what you gave me, I'll just post it as is. It's going to give you, because of the way it's built, the output it'll give you is kind of the average. It's giving you the most predictable response. It'll be good. I mean, it's pretty remarkable that what it'll give you, but it's going to be kind of the next, it's going to be predictable, or it's going to be kind of the most common. But you need to add your information in there, your business, your tone, your specific things that tailor it to your business and your customers. On top of that, you can use that as a starting point, but it's not the final. You need to modify it for many reasons, but you need to modify that output and tailor it and tweak it, so then it really expresses you and your business and and reflects your customers. The other thing it's not ideal for is long form content. We're going to talk about limitations of it. You can't put in 30 pages of text and say, summarize this for me. There's a limitation to how much it can remember, essentially. Or you can't say, write me a 30-page ebook on blah, 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 because it's just not gonna be able to generate. It doesn't have that much memory, or we'll talk about that. But yeah, it's not built to output that much or input that much data or text into its model. So that's right now. Will that get longer? Will that limitation increase? Yes, over time. Or sometimes paid versions, you can put longer text in or get longer outputs versus the free version. That's sometimes what you pay for in the paid version, but really it's not, you're not going to write and I've heard Amazon actually trying to check when people are using, AI to write books and then uploading them to Amazon. They're trying to do things to check to make sure people aren't just using AI for, really kind of crappy books and then people are buying them and then getting mad at Amazon for them. So you can get around it a little bit, or sometimes you can pay extra and get longer context, but you're not really, for the most part, going to be able to write a book out of Gen AI, or even a really long, like I said, a 30-page ebook or something. You're going to need to write it yourself, and then maybe use it to help, like sections. You can say, hey, look at this section and rewrite it, or check punctuation, grammar, spelling for this section, but you can't just upload the whole thing and say, fix this for me. So this slide is going to be, like I said, Michelle is going to send these slides out to you later. So when I talked about ideation and first drafts and lists and summarizing, you're like, well, there's so many things that you can do, but we're not going to be able to cover them all. And every business is going to have different things that it'll use it for. But I just wanted to show you I just kind of did a brain dump of different things that AI can help you with. It can write a job description. I've had people, like, again, write me a job description for this type of position, and then you tailor it to your company, but have it write the basic job description for you, and then you can modify it. You can do anything that has a template. You can say, hey, give me a template for a case study, and then you can start filling in the sections, but you can give you that template or outline. You can evaluate the output we already talked about. Alternative approaches, like give me 3 versions or 10 headlines for blog post titles about this, or give me 3 kind of email marketing subject lines, about this subject. Like or here's the email text you're writing, give me 5, subject lines for this email to capture attention or something like that, or get somebody to open. So you can have it generate a bunch of different ideas for you. Some will be crap, some will be bad, some will be good, some will be, well, I like this part of this one and this part of this one, and you may mash it together. So again, you're going to kind of start seeing, and some things you may never even thought about. You go, oh, I never thought about that angle for this, or oh, I forgot this point that I need to bring up, and that's a really good point that it thought of. So you can have it write quiz questions. You can ask it for what are the top 5 questions that my target audience might ask about something. So again, you can start, there's different personas. We're going to talk about prompts, but there's different ways you can ask the AI to give you different outputs. Again, what goes in is what you're going to get out. So you can't just, it's a little bit of finesse with that to get what you need to get good output, but it's there's so many things out there. You can have it write sales copy, you can have it write website copy, you can summarize notes from a client meeting that you had. you could type up the notes and go, wow, what are the three things? What are the next steps that I should, how should I advise this client, or what are the next steps they should do? You can have a write descriptions for courses. You can have, any number of things. Essentially what I'm saying is that when you think of AI assisting you, think about anything you write today. Anything that in your business that you write all the time, that we write constantly in our businesses. And think about how AI can help improve that, give you more ideas, give you more, like, organize it better, give you structure, give you a starting point, give you a list, give you an outline, like, it can critique your writing. So think about anything you write today, AI can be helpful in that. Again, using it the right way, and making sure that you have the right input to get the right output, but it really can be so beneficial in your business to kind of help you be more productive, be more creative, more ideas and brainstorming, and then, be that assistant and feedback and critique. There's kind of three kind of big buckets for it. All right, so we're gonna have a little break. I don't know if anyone needs one. I don't know where our time. Oh, we're good, pretty good, about 45 minutes in. So I don't know if there's any questions, Michelle, and we're going to talk next about the input, what's called prompt, or prompt engineering. You'll hear that. And there's certain formats and patterns and how you put the data, how you prompt or put the input in to get good output. But I don't know if there's anything, Michelle, in the chat or
Q&A and chat's quiet.
Okay. I don't know, does anyone need a break, or do we want to just keep on rolling? Because at the end, hopefully we can like open up ChatGPT and try some stuff if you want to, if we have time at the end too. I don't know. I guess we're going to keep rolling, Michelle. I'm looking.
Here, keep going.
All right. So prompt. When you hear you'll hear it called prompt engineering. There's people like going to computer science school and they're learning prompt engineering. So but it doesn't have to be that complicated. And a lot of times an AI actually will, you can actually write computer code. You can ask AI to generate computer code. You can ask it to generate a lot of more technical things, which is kind of amazing too, because of course it would understand computer code because it's looking at all the website and the data and it sees all the codes, behind it. So it understands computer language. You can ask it to write something in Python or some programming language. It understands all that, which is amazing. But for our purposes, a prompt is that input into the model. So for the big advancement where the first was the transformers, that the models could scale up so big. The second thing is that it uses these prompts that are natural language prompts. You don't have to know coding anymore. But in the past, you'd have to understand computer coding, and you'd be able to have to code the model, and then it would do what you coded it. Now you can just ask it questions, or you can input through natural language prompts, through text prompts, and then the model can understand so that natural language back and forth. That's the second kind of key advancement, why all of a sudden we've heard about generative AI when it's been around forever, but why is it available for the average people? We don't have to be coders anymore. It's kind of like the tools back when the websites, you have to, coding language to be able to create a website. Now you have tools like Wix or Square or WordSpace that sit on top of it, and you can use. An average person doesn't need to know coding to be able to create a website. The key thing about the prompts is that you need to tell the model what's important and what you want the output to be. You need to give it parameters or instructions like you would an assistant. You can't just say, I need you to go do X. You would say, okay, here's the structure. Here's what I need you to do. Here's my output. Here's how I want it. Here's the information going in. So I get the right output coming back out from the model. So again, the key thing about a prompt is that it's a conversation. I said earlier that it's not going to be, oh, I put it in the first time, I get the perfect thing back the very first time, and I just use it and go. It's a conversation. It's going to be an iteration back and forth with the model. You're going to give it one input, it's going to come back with something. You're going to go, not quite right. You're going to refine the prompt. It'll give it back to you again. It's going to kind of go back and forth. And think of prompts as kind of building blocks. So there's a certain structure to a prompt, again, to get the best information in, to get that information back out that's usable. So we're going to talk about different structures, and there's all different ones. There's actually many papers and many things are being written about, again, and there's a whole field of prompt engineering about structuring prompts to go in. I'm going to give you two here today that I think are probably the most beneficial for small businesses to kind of get started with AI as far as a structure for a prompt. Again, it's that garbage in, garbage out. So you can type, and that's where you hear a lot of people going, oh, AI is crap. It gives you garbage. Nothing's useful coming out of it. Well, if you don't structure things going in, asking it correctly, it'll just try to make up something at the end, but it won't be what you want. So then all of a sudden people go, oh, it's worthless. Don't use it, because they're not really understanding how to get the best out of it by putting the right structure going into it. And to think about it like writing a letter. So if you were to write a letter, you have, it's the to, it's the from, it's the dear, it's the body, it's this, sincerely. Those are very structured sections of a letter. If you didn't have that, you just kind of wrote something on a page and like, well, it's not a letter. So you have to think of prompts as kind of those building blocks, and kind of like you have to it's giving instruction about, I want you to write this header. I want you to do this. I want you, you're giving instructions to the model so it knows how to give you the output back in the format that you want. But it is flexible and adaptable. So it's going to have that randomness. It's going to have that within that structure, there needs to be enough flexibility for the model to kind of get, I don't say creative, but to give you options and to give you, it's going to, kind of give you, well, here's one option, here's another, within that structure and framework. So writing prompts is, I talk about it being an art and a science in the sense that you will write it, it'll be ugly the first times when you do it. And you go, like, this is not working. Just keep at it, keep trying it, keep refining it. And you'll eventually start getting the feel for how you want to give information to it to get the right information back out. But it's going to be, it's not a write it this way, you always get this perfect output. So I made up this prompt pattern because I was writing, I was like going, well, this is kind of how the best way to lay out the prompt. Again, you still have flexibility within the structure, but at least it gives you kind of a template to put the data or put the input into the AI model. So you have the best shot of getting what you want out of it. And I'm calling it PCAR only because everything has an acronym, right? So the first thing is persona. You have to tell the model what role you want the model to play. That's the very first thing. Do nothing. If you do nothing else, you have to tell the model who you want it to be. It's kind of, otherwise the model doesn't understand what role am I playing when I give the answer back to you, because then it'll just make up something. And that's when I'm like, oh, well, it's not right. Well, yeah, you never told the model how you want it to act, who you want it to be. So it provides that guardrails and context. So when so that's where you always see the prompt starting is act as if. Act as if you are a B2B marketer. Act as if you are a personal trainer. Act as if you are a dog trainer. You're telling the model, I want you to assume this persona when you respond back to me. You've got to give it, I said, that's the very first thing you put into the prompt. Act as if, or telling that model what role you want it to be. Because then it's going to give you all the answers as if it's that persona. The next part of the prompt will be context. So you're going to add additional information around that persona, that role you want it to be. It could be experience, expertise, background. It could be it's the target audience that you're trying to reach. So in this case, I'm just kind of using my marketing experience. So you're saying, hey, act as if you're a B2B marketer. That's the persona I want you to take on, model. You have expertise in marketing and lead generation and nurturing. You specialize in email marketing and newsletters, so that you're saying, here's the additional context around who you are as a B2B marketer. You have expertise in these areas, because you're not going to have expertise in everything, but and that expertise is tailored to these things. The next thing you're going to do, oops, I lost my little, is then give it an action. You're going to tell it what you want the output to be. You're going to give it clear instructions, write this, summarize this, give me an outline, give me a list. You know, you're going to tell what output do I want it to be. And you might also list things if you had very specific formatting details, like, you know, if you're writing, I want you to write a blog post for LinkedIn. Well, that's a very different than if I'm writing a post for Facebook, or, you know, so you have to tell it kind of, or you want it to tell it like certain number of characters. Like if I'm writing, let's give an example. So you could write a blog post about email newsletters, overall marketing strategy. And you want to tell the tone, you know, are you friendly, casual? Are you upbeat and happy? Giving that tone will help the model, again, output what you want it to be. If you don't tell it, it's going to kind of make up its own tone. For some reason, every time I tell ChatGPT something, it wants to put like 1,000 emojis in there. I don't want emojis. So you would say, hey, no emojis for me, because it will put emojis in everything for some reason. Or, and I'm writing this as a business, you know, a professional business tone, don't put emojis in there. Or sometimes that it may come back to the emojis and I'll have to go back and say, oh yeah, and take the emojis out. You might have like max word length. So if there's any kind of format or structure that you want to, or it could be, you know, keep the blog post within the range of 800 to 1,000 words, you know, so you got to tell it any constraints or specific channels or format, or, you know, kind of things around that action, which you want the model to do. And then the last is you're going to refine and reiterate. Again, it's not going to be perfect the first time, or you're going to modify. You're okay. Well, I forgot to tell you about the emojis. We'll go back and tell you about the emojis. Or, you know, oh, can you regenerate that with, I forgot to put the audience in there, or target audience. Okay, regenerate it with, you know, aimed at, you know, small business owners or something. So you can kind of start refining. If it's not outputting the first time like you think it should, then you probably need to add more parameters and context or guardrails or information into the model, so it knows, oh, you didn't mention it was for, you know, aimed at small business owners. I'll regenerate it with that audience in mind. And then you can also ask it to do, then once you get kind of the base, you can ask it, now pull 3 tweets out of this, or hey, take this blog post and create a webinar description. Like maybe I wanted to create a webinar off of this. So you can start taking that kind of base and then iterating it into different types of content and not have to kind of restart it. You can say, okay, take the same thing you've worked on and give me some ideas in these other kind of adjacent areas.
Sandy?
Yeah.
Okay, we've got a question from Elena Tarver. Is there a best practice for disclosing when AI has been used? Would social posts or published content need to mention that they're AI generated, or is it not needed if a human checks or edits it before posting?
That is such a good question. And I have a legal slide, and then I think we'll address it in that. So Michelle, come back and read that to me if I don't quite address it in the legal.
Okay.
I don't want to say the answer is it depends, but we'll talk through kind of when you should disclose it and when, again, this is my opinion. There's always a disclaimer, I'm not a lawyer, but there's I think it was best practice of when you should disclose it and when you are okay not to. So we'll talk about that in the legal section. Really good question though.
Okay, and Brandon Hamilton is asking, have you ever heard of the RICE framework for prompting, which is the role, instruction, content, constraints, and examples?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of different models out there. But again, the role is the persona, instruction is the action, you know, and then context, I would think, sometimes you have to provide more that could be the price. I think of E as execution maybe, but yeah, it very
Examples.
similar for, yeah, examples. I don't know about the examples. I guess examples is output maybe, because you could generate different types. I haven't heard of that one specifically, but it's very similar. I mean, this is just my version made up, but there's, I've heard of PACE and I've heard of different ones. Achieve is another one I've heard of. So people are kind of building their own, again, everyone's kind of building their own thing. At least it's to give you an idea of, you need to put the role or persona, you need to give it some kind of context, or some kind of information of some background, some about what it's supposed to be doing, what exactly output you want, and any formatting or limitations or specifics about that output, and then the refining and reiterating, the tweaking and kind of modifying it based on that. But no, that's probably a good one too. I will check. I'm going to write that down. I'm going to check that out.
And that is what we have.
And the key thing is, whatever one you want to use, you don't have to use this one, but if you find one you like better, then, but you do, the key thing is that there is a certain structure to the prompt. You can't just type in willy-nilly, free will, putting it in the model. And the model will answer you. It'll try to give you the output it thinks it wants, you want. But if it's not kind of clear to it, it's just going to kind of go, oh, well, this is what I'm going to give you because I'm not really sure about your audience. Okay. Or you didn't tell me who I'm supposed to be. If I said, give me a blog post about the importance of email newsletter marketing, and I didn't tell you you were a B2B marketer, I mean, it could write anything because it could assume any kind of persona or role in the background, and it may not be at all what you want. So again, the key is just whatever format you find, just kind of follow that and making sure that, and see if it's working for you. If not, then you're gonna kind of tweak it. So there's two different personas, and I'm going to kind of talk about the expert persona and then an audience persona. I think these, following that still that same PCAR format, there's ways you can have the model act as an expert, and I think these are the two probably the most impactful for small business or any business, or the ones kind of get started with, and then you can do more advanced ones later. But is to have the role act as the role of the expert and have the model act as the role of your target audience. And so I think we're going to talk about both of those. They're related and complementary to each other, but they're slightly different in kind of thinking about input into the model. So for the expert persona, so think about the model taking on the role. If you had a specific problem in the real world, and you needed that solved, who would you go to for the answer? Who is that expert? Is it a marketing expert? It could be financial planner expert. It could be whoever that is that you have a problem, and what role or person would you go to get that solved? You don't know what the expert's going to say. You don't know how they're going to arrive at their answer. You're just trusting that they're the expert now. They're going to give you the output based on their expertise. And you don't have to go in telling it everything, but by giving that role to the model, it's going to come up with its best answer, but you don't necessarily know what that's going to be. So this is where we just kind of did it a little bit with the act as if you're a B2B marketer. It's the act as if, or pretend you are. You can tell the model to take on that expert role. Act as if, I guess we'll have some examples here on the next slide, but you're saying, act as if you're this expert. Here's what I want you to kind of give back to me if you were that expert giving me advice or opinion. So we did a little bit with this one. Another one is, act as if you're a personal financial planner. Again, still following the format, saying you can't just tell personal financial planner because the model will go, well, okay, that's a big, big role. So what else in there? Gonna narrow that down for the model. And then say, you're going to grow your business by establishing yourself as a thought leader. So now I'm a personal financial planner. I'm the model. I want to establish my thought leadership aimed at my target audience, professional women in their 30s. and I want to encourage them to start planning for retirement. So again, I'm giving it kind of context. Again, if I just left it as personal financial planner, give me a blog post, it could write about anything. But you're saying, hey, I need you to focus in on this target audience. You are looking to do this. You want to be a thought leader. You're targeting these women. You want them to start thinking about retirement. So then it's like, okay, give me 10 ideas. Here's the action that I could write on to be a thought leader on LinkedIn. Because I don't care about being a thought leader on Facebook, or I don't want tweets. I want to be, I'm targeting a professional women. So I want to be on LinkedIn. So that's the platform. So again, you're giving it constraints in the platform. You're saying, give me 10 ideas on what I can be, how I can be a thought leader. And then you're going to, depending on that, you might ask it to regenerate. You may say, take that then and build a 12-month marketing calendar. Again, you're still using that same persona, background, and context. And now you're asking it to do other things based on that information you've already given the model. That's the one thing about a model is you'll have a thread of a conversation. So as long as you stay in that thread, it'll go back and reference everything that you said up here in the beginning of the thread. It's going to keep that throughout until the model's memory runs out. But we'll talk about that, about limitations. But essentially, if you tell it's a personal financial planner and you keep asking it for things, different deliverables or outputs, it's going to always say, I'm a personal financial planner. I'm going to establish myself as a thought leader for women in their 30s. So it's going to always keep that when it's giving you its output. So you can start asking it, do a 12-month marketing calendar, or give me a list of questions that an inexperienced person might ask me as the personal financial planner about saving for retirement. So you can start asking it, again, it's going to stay in that role. It's going to stay with that context of its experience and expertise, but then you can start asking it to do different things in that same persona context. Another one could be act as if you're a personal trainer. You specialize in online fitness programs for women during pregnancy and post-pregnancy. You want to grow your business by creating a small group coaching program. So you're giving it the context, not just saying act as a personal trainer and then asking it for an output, because it's going to go, okay, I'm a personal trainer. I could be men, women, strength, flexibility, mobility, it can give you everything under the sun. But then you have to give it that additional context. And then you're saying, okay, what's the specific thing I want the output? For this one, I said, hey, give me an outline for an 8-week coaching program targeted at women during their last 8 weeks of pregnancy. Again, you can put time constraints in there. So I want an 8-week coaching program. So it's going to give me, it's going to give me that kind of framework. And then I want the last 8 weeks of the pregnancy. If I didn't put that in there, it might assume any time during that pregnancy, an 8-week program. Maybe it's, at the very beginning of their pregnancy. And I don't want that. I want the last 8 weeks. So you could put time constraints into the model. And then it might give you that and you're like, great. And then you might say, hey, well, what about a 4-week coaching program? I'm still the same persona. It's the same kind of background expertise, but now I want a 4-week coaching program for post-pregnancy. So after they've given birth, what would that look like? Give me some ideas for that. And then I might say, hey, give me some blog post ideas for women can balance exercise and caring for a baby. So that's, again, it's still that same persona and context. And then you're asking it for different kind of actions and refining what you want, but it's still, the model's going to hold in its position, or it's going to say the model still acting as a personal trainer focused on women during pregnancy and post-pregnancy and fitness, so it's not going to start at, straying from that persona until you create a new chat kind of a thing, a new, I can't think of the word, but like a new thread, basically. So these are ways that you can have the model start acting as if you're an expert. And then, because even if you are an expert, this is how the model is going to help you. Like, say you are a personal trainer, you're focused on women during their pregnancy, but this is like ideas and generations. You can help the model give you ideas and creativity on, like, oh, what if I had a coaching program? What would that look like? Here's some options. Here's some things to think about. Oh, that's interesting. And then kind of refine, reiterate, and then you can start asking it like, well, what would, if I wrote something out about this, or what are some ideas that here, or what are some questions that people might be asking me as if I'm this personal trainer. So you can start kind of asking the model to almost be you as the expert, but giving you ideas as that expert. Because if you just said, hey, act as if you're, or you just said, hey, give me 4 blog post ideas about how women can balance exercise and caring for a newborn baby. It might write it from the mom's perspective. It might write it from the doctor's perspective. It might write it from, it'll just write something, or it may not even know, and it kind of be, well, here's some information, but it may not at all be what you want coming from a personal trainer perspective.
Andy?
Yeah.
Brandon Hamilton is asking, are there any websites, books, articles that provide pre-written prompts for chat and or GPT? And what AI software do you prefer?
Yeah, so there is a whole host of people that are calling themselves prompt engineers, and they're writing prompts that you can buy. You can actually buy prompts. You can, so there'll be websites that talk about AI, and they'll have like 1 or 2, like here's some examples I gave you, totally can use them, I don't care. And there'll be some articles. There's some thought leaders in the Gen AI space you can find like on LinkedIn. Just be careful because everyone's calling themselves a Gen AI, like everything when everyone's jumping on the bandwagon. But I would, if you're looking for somebody that is an expertise in an area, I would think of like somebody that's already kind of expertise in small business or in marketing, and they're adding AI as a tool. Then I would probably, they would have like examples, and and you can go to like the Bloombergs and the Forbes, and they are writing articles about Gen AI and prompts and stuff. I would say there's a really good, if you have Coursera. So I currently work at Vanderbilt University, and so I've been taking classes and courses through Vanderbilt on Gen AI, and they have a course on Coursera that's about prompt engineering, essentially. You could look for other online courses. I'm sure on Udemy and other places there are courses on prompt engineering. And it's going to give you, again, structures and ways to write prompts. I don't know if that was helpful or not. Was there more to the question, I think, than that?
No, I think that was it.
Okay.
Good.
But people that are selling prompts, for now, I wouldn't buy prompts from anybody. I've seen packages like buy 500 prompts about something. And like, well, how do I know if those prompts are at all related to me? I think if you just start with these and start playing around with it, you'll get pretty far. And then I think taking some prompt engineering courses, whether it's on Skillshare or Coursera or Udemy or somewhere, kind of just look at the person and make sure that they know what they're talking about. Like the one on Coursera is taught by Vanderbilt University professors. I know them. They're in the data science, computer science. Again, they get a little technical because they're professors, and they go down to the weeds a little bit of coding, and you're like if you were writing programming languages and using chat and using AI, but that I just kind of, those are like not applicable. But again, the kind of and they have many different kind of patterns. So these are the kind of 2 main ones, and then they go on into a recipe pattern. There's the flipped interaction pattern. There's the, they go much deeper into that. So that'd be one I'd recommend. The other thing is model. So I use Chat GPT probably mostly because I still use the free version. I haven't paid for anything yet, because I don't really need the extra stuff that paid is doing. I'm playing around with Microsoft, or not Microsoft, but Google Bard, just because it's plugged to the internet. So I want to see how it does differently versus, Chat GPT, which is a standalone for the free version. I've heard about LinkedIn's AI that's built into their platform is not very good. So I haven't really tried that one, but I've seen some stuff from it. I'm like, again, it could be the inputs, but these are people that are LinkedIn experts, and they're talking about that tool. So I kind of trust their opinion on that a little bit. But I would just say to get started, I would just use the free Chat GPT one. There's other ones. If you were writing like Grammarly, if you were doing a lot of writing about, it has it's more like, again, Grammarly, spell checking, punctuation, that kind of stuff, like grammar, but it's got an AI built into it. There's one called Jasper. I'm kind of playing, it's a limited time where you can, like, 14 days free, and then you have to pay for it. It's kind of pricey. It's like $50 a month. So I've experimented with Jasper. The nice thing about Jasper is that it sits on top of and has templates already kind of created, and it's very much a marketing driven tool. So it's like it already has templates built in for so templates meaning kind of prompts that the model that it tells the model. So it already has those kind of marketing structures in there for a blog post and social media posts and different kind of templates already written that you put in your information, and then it already has that structure built in for the model to create output for you. Sorry, that was probably, but again, there's hundreds of models. Every day someone's coming up with one, and I just like, I've never heard of that one before, but if it works, great. You know, the key is, like, again, all these models are going to work the same on the backside. It's the prompt, and the prompt that you learn, any pattern that you learn is going to work with any model. It's going to, whatever, as long as you kind of put that input in, the models are going to react the same way in the back end. I mean, there's going to be variation, but that's going to be good for any model that you use, is some kind of a pattern going in, or like this one, or Rice, or Achieve, or any of the other ones out there. All right, so the next one I'm going to do is, so taking the expert persona, that's the act as if you're this expert, and here's what your expertise and experience. This is a really good one. The audience persona it's complementary too, and they kind of fit together. But I think it's a really good one, especially if you have different target customers. So sometimes I know a small business, they'll sell to a business, and they may also sell to a consumer. You know, they may have two different target audiences, or they might have different products in their portfolio aimed at different people or different target audiences. And so this is where you can kind of start looking at your content based on those audience personas, and you can start seeing things from their perspective versus being the expert perspective. So the audience persona is, again, it's kind of flipping it around. And we always want to talk about this in market research. I'm sure Cal in his market research 101, or anytime I have when I talk about market research in my workshops, you always want to understand the end user, and you always want to think about things from their perspective. And so this kind of helps, the model will help you flip it around. So you start looking at on how, if I was this audience, how would I view things? What would I be asking? What's the information I need? What are the problems I have? So again, it's kind of flipping it around. So you want the large language model to use its knowledge of the audience to generate the output. So again, it's going to, instead of looking at it from the expert, it's now going to flip and say, okay, I'm the audience. Here, everything I give you as output is going to be within that frame or that window of the audience perspective. Again, you're not telling you who the audience, what they should look like. You're not saying, you're not giving it demographics or psychographics. You're not giving anything like that. So you're just telling the audience, the model, here's who the target audience is. Again, based on all the training data that the model has done, it's going to be able to build itself a profile of who that audience is, which is amazing. I mean, that's like it's just amazing that it can do that, but coming at things from that perspective. I would think this is a really good one, because sometimes as experts, or you've been in a business so long, or you've sold this product for so long, or you know this industry so well, that you sometimes forget. It's called the curse of knowledge, or curse of the expert. You forget what it was like at the beginner level. You forget that you think everybody knows this stuff, right? Or you go, well, of course people understand this part of this. I don't need to tell them this because they understand. Like, no, so you kind of forget that beginner, or what it was like when somebody's first approaching your company or your product or service. And so you kind of forget. So this will help you get that perspective as well, as opposed to being the expert. It's like, oh, wow, I didn't think about it from that kind of beginner's mindset. So with this prompt, you're going to start with things like assume that, well, actually assume that I am X, or assume that, the model is this audience persona. And then you could say, explain something here as, it's going to explain it from that beginner's mindset. Or you can ask it a question about that problem that persona is trying to solve. So you can say, well, I'll give you some examples. We can say, assume that you are X. What would be the question you would have about this? So again, you can kind of do it as explaining it to a first, like what would a beginner, how would I explain something to a beginner or somebody new to this space? Or you can say, what would be the questions that that beginner or somebody new to this space would have? So I want to kind of show you a little crazy example, and then we'll show some I'll show you a kind of an extreme example to get the concept, and then we'll show some kind of more realistic ones. So assume that I have no background in computer science. Explain to me how large language models work, essentially. So you're like, okay, so you're telling the model to assume the role of somebody that has that here's the audience. No one has no idea about computer science. How do large language models work? Explain that to me. So you're kind of, again, coming at it from like, I don't know anything. How would you tell me how this works? But then you can also say, hey, assume that I'm Christopher Columbus. And you don't have to tell the model who Christopher Columbus is. It knows from all its training data who Christopher Columbus is. Explain to me how large language models work. It's going to come back with an output very different if it was trying to explain to Christopher Columbus versus somebody in the modern era that just doesn't have any computer science understanding. And then you can say, hey, I'm a second grader and I get bored. So you explain to me how large language models work. So those are it's the same thing you're asking, but very different audiences. And how the output for each will be very, very different because each audience has different understanding, different background, but you don't have to tell it a second grader at this level. It's just going to know, okay, second grader, I'm going to reword this completely different for that audience. So that's one way to kind of say, hey, I've got this information I want to share. Here's my target audiences. And you could put in different target audiences. Assume that I am different people and see how the model will start explaining the same concept differently. That's one thing. So especially if you are looking at different audiences, but you're talking about the same thing, you're going to phrase it differently for those different audiences. And another example is, say I'm 30-year-old woman with no background in exercise science or physiology, explain the role of recovery in a strength training program to me. So you're saying, hey, I'm this kind of person, explain this concept to me. But then if I'm a college student, I'm just starting a program in exercise science. So I'm going to have a little bit different experience, knowledge about that. Explain the role of recovery to me. Or you can say, hey, I'm a seventh grader just starting to play organized sports. Explain the role of recovery in strength training program to me. So it's the same thing you're asking, but the output will be very different depending on the audience you put in. Here's another one. So then you can also do things so sometimes you might have the same product or the same service that you're selling to different audiences. That's one way. But then you might just say, hey, I've got a different audience and I want to understand from their perspective. Like I may have sub-segments within the same, like they're all, like this one here, they're all dog owners, but a first-time puppy owner or first-time dog owner might be different than somebody who's, a different kind of dog owner that has had dogs for 20 plus years. So you might say, well, how do I, as a first-time dog owner, assume that I'm a first-time dog owner? What are the 3 questions that they would have about potty training a puppy? Because you may forget, you may go, everybody knows it's about potty training a puppy, right? Take it out every 2 hours, take it out after you feed, after you give it food to immediately take it out. I don't know. Does a first-time dog owner know that about a puppy? I don't know. We'll see what the model says. So it'll help you kind of get in that beginner's mindset or that target audience that so much as an expert, but you forget they don't know any of that. If they've never had a dog before, they're like, I don't know, I'm supposed to take him out after I give him food and like automatically take him out so he gets that's the plan. Or I'm supposed to get up every 2 hours, take him out, even if he doesn't like, and he's supposed to go like just scratch at the door and tell me? No, you have to take him out until he learns that, oh, this is what we do. The other one is like, say you're a homeowner in the United States and you want to remodel your bathroom in your home. What are the steps I needed to get started? So again, if I was a contractor and I'm looking at what that homeowner doesn't know anything, they've never done anything, or they have a small remodel, then what are the steps that they need to get started? Well, then I can write content around those steps. I can write information that helps that person, like, oh, these are the steps that they don't even understand. They don't even know that whether you need a permit or not. Okay, maybe one of the steps is that you need to get a permit if I do structure. Well, I can help them by writing content that answers those questions. But if I didn't ask, the model can help me generate those questions, because I'm like, well, everybody knows that kind of stuff. Well, no, they don't. Or saying I'm a woman getting married for the first time. Give me 5 tips when hiring a caterer. If I was a caterer, I'd want to know, so I could write content around those tips to say, hey, and provide that information to that target customer. Hey, you're getting married for the first time. Congratulations. Here's the things you should look for when you're hiring a caterer. I mean, write that blog post up, and then you're going to be the one that they go, oh, I didn't think about these things. You're providing that information and providing that that know, like, and trust, where they can go, okay, here's the things to look for. And then of course your company would be able to answer those 5 questions and answer those give that information to the consumer, makes them trust you more. All right, so that's kind of the 2 personas, expert and then audience. So I think those are the 2 ones that would be the best benefit for small businesses, because they're going to give you, again, you can ask. So if you're a small business owner and you don't have a marketing person on your team, well, ask the model to be an expert marketing person, and then start asking it questions in that role. Or if you're saying, hey, I need to understand my target audience better, what are problems that they're having? What are the top 5 problems? What are the questions that they would ask about this? You can ask the model to assume that role, and then start asking it questions and output based on it taking on the role of your target audience. So I think those are pretty powerful ways to kind of get started with the model, and to start having it work for you and giving you, again, good output that you can then modify and reiterate on, but kind of giving that starting point. All right, before we go on to the next, we're going to go to the next section about some limitations to the model, and then the kind of the legal stuff. So just give a quick check here on time. Okay, I think we're good. All right, so some of the limitations of this applies to all LLMs, all large language models. Every model is going to have, and they call them tokens. I wish they didn't do this, but they did, because computer scientists develop these models. They don't always, again, they're thinking in their terms, and they don't think about in average people terms. But so all models are going to have a limitation of a maximum amount of what they call tokens. And tokens is not a word. Tokens does not equal a word. It's word fragments. I have no idea what fragments of word, if a token, if the word information is 3 tokens or 1 or 2 tokens. No one understands that part, but just understand that they talk about terms of tokens, which is fragments of words that the AI can remember. It's going to have a max. It just can't, the AI just can't hold everything in its memory forever. It's going to, at some point, lose the thread of the conversation, because think of the tokens kind of being the amount of memory that the AI has loosely. At some point, it's just going to stop remembering what that very first prompt was down in the conversation. For ChatGPT 3.5, that's the free version. It's about 4,000 tokens, anywhere from, I've heard 2,000 to 3,000 words. I've heard 1,000 to 3,000 words, but generally you're going to get no more than like 3,000 words before it kind of loses its thread of the conversation. Again, that's some with the paid versions. you can get longer. So it's like Chat GPT-4, which is the paid version. It's got a longer max, or it's got a higher max of 8,000 tokens, which is about 6,000 words. There's even like a Chat GPT-4 Turbo that you can pay for, and it's got longer. It's got many more tokens or words that you can input and output. The Claude from Anthropic, I can't say it, but their version, they claim they could do like 100,000 tokens. So, different models, but then you pay for that. So again, free versions are going to usually be limited. Still 3,000 words, and that's still plenty in a thread. And you can always start a new conversation if it kind of starts losing it, or you can put the prompt back in again. Like you could put the role and the context back in again if it starts kind of losing its threat, losing itself in the conversation. You can start telling like, well, that doesn't really make sense. And then you think, okay, it's probably beyond its limit. And you could re-put the prompt back in the original one and then start and continue the conversation. So just kind of think about that. There is some point where it's going to kind of start losing its way. Or again, that's why you can't put a paid, a book of text in there and say summarize it, or you can't have it output, write me a book, because it just doesn't have that kind of memory, or doesn't have that it's going to hit that limitation and tell you it can't generate any more beyond that. Some of the plugins, so the paid versions of all these programs usually offer different, again, functionality or plugins. That's a big thing with GPT-4 is now all these third-party companies are building plugins on top of that model that are part of the paid version. I'm sure there'll be the same thing with the Facebook Llama, or any of these ones that come out. Like that's why someone like Jasper is higher to begin with, because it already has those kind of functions built into the base, into the software that sits on top of the LLM. Why does this context length matter? Because you hear a lot of stories and articles about hallucinations. That's why any Gen AI model they hallucinate all the time. They make stuff up. They don't, and you can force the model to do a lot of things, and you can force it to go beyond its capacities, and it's gonna do the best it can to try to provide you an answer, but it's going to not be great at that point. And that's what you hear. So a lot of times when it loses that thread of the conversation, it'll start responding with some crazy stuff or things that don't make sense. And that's when it's hallucinating, meaning it's trying to give an answer, but it just doesn't remember anymore the thread of the conversation. And so think about that when you start getting kind of strange and output from the model. It might be that it's past its memory, and then you need to kind of reprompt it or start over because it's kind of lost that thread. So it hallucinates. It's going to give you an answer. It's always going to give you an answer. It's going to give you some kind of output. It'll just start degrading in the quality or the applicability of that output. That's also okay. You can't copy these really long documents into the model. It just doesn't have that. And sometimes if you try pasting text in there, it'll tell you, this is what I can only do the first 3 pages of this document. I can't do all 50 pages. It'll tell you that you can't post it in, you can't paste that into the prompt. And then a lot of times because you want it to, these longer documents, it can't interact with the whole document. Like if you had I know somebody that was trying to put in a 3,000-page document and saying, summarize this, I'm like, you can't, the model's gonna go, I can't do that. It's just gonna say, you can put in the first 10 pages, say, or something, and I can give you that. And then you put the next 10 pages in, I can give you that. Put the next 10 pages in, can give you summarize that, but it can't just interact with the whole document. You can do chunks of it, but it can't do everything. If you wanted to analyze something, a whole long article, it's not going to be able to do that. It's going to say, well, give me these first sections and I can analyze these sections. I can analyze these sections. So just kind of think about that with the context link. That's a big thing. Hallucinations is the big thing. And that's usually what's happening, is that the model just kind of loses its memory and it can't keep it anymore. But again, you can just kind of re-prompt it to kind of get it back to where you want. Go ahead, Michelle.
I'm sorry, Brandon Hamilton, going back to plugins, he's asking, are there any recommendations of any plugins you are using with free version of Chat GPT?
So the free version, you cannot do plugins at all. You have to go to the Chat GPT 4, the paid version, before you get access to plugins. And plugins they're adding them all the time. There are plugins for, if you would Chat GPT to go straight to a Google Sheet or an Excel spreadsheet. There are plugins for it to go out to the internet. So you can supplement the model by letting it search the internet. The plugins you can tell to go, like you could put the URL in for a website and say, look at this website and give me output or answer me these things based on this website information. So you can put that in. You can put in PDFs of documents. There's plugins for that. So that's where it can go out so that you're not asking the model to remember everything. It's going out and referencing these other things. So the paid versions are very powerful. If I'd say start with the free, as you get more into it, then I would, upgrading to the paid version can really be worth it for those plugins and those additional, another program like Jasper that has those things kind of built in. It's more expensive, but again, those are depending on what you want to do with the models. But the free version, that's why it's free. There's no plugin access. It's only with the paid version. Hope that answered it. Anything else, Michelle?
No, that was the only one. Thank you.
But the plugin, I'm playing with the free version, but I'm on the cusp of going to the paid version because I want to get the plugins. I want to start accessing different capabilities of it, or going to a program, maybe like a Jasper or something that's going to be have that kind of in those templates and stuff like that, tailored more towards marketing. So again, different models, the different programs that sit on top of the model will be tailored kind of to different audiences and different kind of use cases. So you can kind of looking at those that they sit on top of like Jasper uses OpenAI's model, it uses Chat GPT, but the stuff they've built on top of it is what you're paying for. It's kind of like the paid version, but it's tailored to marketing. So it has very specific additional functionality for marketing people on top of that versus other programs will sit on top of the LLM and they'll be tailored to different kinds of like if I was a software coder, it'd probably be a different one I would look at purchasing or paying for because it would be designed more for developers versus marketing. All right, so here's the legal concerns. Back to you, Ed, if I don't get this question. So copyright infringement. Cases are being filed left and right. Like, I don't know how many cases have been filed against OpenAI and ChatGPT for copyright infringement. Who knows what's going to happen. They are just now being filed. The genie is out of the bottle. There's no way to stuff it back in there or to change it. So it's here to stay. These tools are here to stay. Now there's going to be different things that we might adjust on these tools, or there's different, like you can start seeing Chat GPT will start, and the models are adjusting, like they're writing different rules into the models to say, hey, if somebody asks you to do about something illegal, you need to say, I really don't do illegal things, or they're trying to build in things into the model now to kind of address some of these concerns before regulations come down or before court cases get decided. But it's a wild, wild west for copyright infringement concerns. And I will say that probably the bigger of the two is the image AI. That's where people are saying, create an image in the style of, this artist. That's a much bigger concern because the model's direct, because it's trained on all the data out here, and it's creating your image, but it's using that style. And is that infringing on the artist's right? So who knows where it's going to shake out. So what I would say for copyright infringement is you never take what the model gives you directly out of the model, and verbatim, one for one, just copy paste it and make it, that's your blog post, or that's your thing. You always need to modify that text. So the hard part with the models is that it's training on billions of data. You have no idea where it's pulling information from, and it's predicting the next most likely word. It's predicting the output. It's not going and saying, I'm copying this specific thing from this website and I'm sticking it into this output. It's never doing that one. It's taking the whole corpus of information and saying, based on all this data, here's the most likely kind of compilation of all that stuff. So it's not one for one, but I will say it's giving you kind of the predict.
Andy, we lost you. Can you hear? Has anyone lost Sandy sound? Is it me or is it her?
No, it's her. I thought it was me at first.
Yeah, I lost it as
Okay,
well.
so she is frozen. Got it. Let me see if I can get her. Oh. So I think she's probably going to come back in. Stand by. The latest, Sandy still has not answered your question, correct? About credit attributes, that it was AI generated? Right, okay. She was getting to it, I know. Okay, this shouldn't take long for her, hopefully. And she just texted me, she's trying to reconnect. So given what you've heard, is there anything that you still have not had answered that you came in hoping to hear? Anybody?
No, I think I've gotten all the information that I was expecting to receive. The one thing that was really, really good is I never even thought about, I've used the chat GPT, but I've never even thought about it from putting it in there as like potentially trying to determine what type of questions a particular client could possibly ask. So that's definitely valuable information.
Absolutely. You could probably help it. I'm trying to think of how to identify maybe, your customer.
Yeah.
I'm trying to,
Yeah.
that's a possibility.
That's true. And I was actually in the most recent cohort for the pitch. And so when I was working on my, I know Sandy had did the 90-second to 5-minute pitch. And so I had written my pitch, but then I put it in Chat GPT to do things a little bit more concise because I am kind of wordy and I know that there's a time limitation on these pitches. And so I actually utilize it in that way.
Excellent. Did you ask it to analyze?
No, I think
Or
I should make this more concise. I think
Okay.
those were my actual terms. So learning these different prompts is really beneficial for me as well.
Excellent, excellent.
Yeah, this class was more information on the background and understanding what Chat GTP is as far as the AI. I was using it. I've been using it for about maybe 3 or 4 months, and it's been very helpful. I can use it to use business plans, even to the point of using it for my voicemail for my business as well. So it's very helpful. But now I never, like said earlier, the audience persona. I've never thought about using Chat GPT from that point of angle. So I picked up on that, and that's a lot of information. I got about 2 pages worth of notes. So I'm very excited about this class. I wish we got to do some more hands-on as far as prompts, but it's been worth my time for sure.
Excellent, excellent. Good comments. Thanks, Brandon.
I am so sorry. I have no idea what happened. My internet just went down. So
Yeah, you just stopped. It was okay. We were here. We're waiting
sorry.
impatiently.
All right. Um, yeah, so let me share screen again. Okay, let's try this again. Okay. Oh. All right, so sorry. You
That's
know,
okay.
technology. There you go. Hopefully I switched to my phone hotspot, so we'll see because my internet is down. So let's hope this works. Yeah, so copyright. So again, always modifying it. So it's you're tweaking it, making it your own. So there will be less of an issue of copyright infringement. Again, this will probably be the one that changes the most over the next couple of months. This is where earlier I said, I think Ed's question was about never, ever, ever upload any personal or proprietary information into any third-party model. So don't be giving it specific client information or about specific customers or any kind of data that you think, because you could upload data and have it create like spreadsheets and things. Don't do that in the model, because right now the models are, you know, like everything. If you upload something to Facebook, it's not private anymore, no matter what. Even if it's in a private group, it's not private. So just don't put anything in the model that is confidential, proprietary. People are getting in big trouble. I know cases about even legal cases with law firms are using, you know, LLMs to research cases, and then the LLMs coming back with, oh, it's like made up cases and like citing sources of cases, and it's like not even real, and they're using them in briefs like to file with the court. Like, it's just don't. Again, there's also a bias in every model. You know, no matter, we're humans, we're biased. Models are going to have inherent biases because they're basing it on internet data, which we know is not always accurate or just say nice at times. There's all kinds of information out there. It's written, you know, it's written by humans. It's trained on data written by humans. So just kind of be cognizant, especially with I've seen it more with the images, the image AI, that there's a lot of biases in there where if you tell it to create an image of, you know, a doctor or some professions like a doctor or lawyer, the model always returns white males because it assumes, it's been trained on the fact that, oh, doctors are white males, right? You know, they're not. So it's more with images, but even on any AI that you use, there could be inherent biases in the data, and to try to be cognizant of that. Regulatory compliance. So there's specific industries, healthcare is one, the legal field's another one, where they are very, you know, their rules, and even companies will have their own kind of regulations or rules about how people use AI within the company. Some large companies are creating their own models that sit inside their firewalls, and then they can share data, company data in there, because it's their own proprietary internal large language model. It's very expensive to do, but for some of those big companies, they can do that. So they're not using the public one, but again, we're all using the third-party ones. So just be careful of that. And then for anything with transparency, I would say, you know, add a disclaimer. And this goes to the other question about I'm not a lawyer, so, always, if there's any question about something, consult a lawyer. But I would say, so if you're taking literally the text from the model and you're not modifying it much and you're using that, I think you should say it's created with AI assistance. You need to add some kind of disclaimer on that. If you want to make sure that you're protected. If you take that copy and then you modify, you add your expertise, experience, you're changing it to reflect your tone, your business, you're using it as the base, and then you're kind of building on top of that or modifying it, then that's up to you whether you say create with AI assistance or not. I think at that point, and this is my personal opinion, not a legal opinion at all, but if you are structurally changing it, the model's providing the framework, but then you're adding your own uniqueness to it, then you're probably fine. It's no different than you say to your assistant, hey, get me started on writing this, framework, or I go to a book and I read about, here's the case study framework for a case study. That's not proprietary. There's nothing, that's a standard format that's being used, and then you plug in your own uniqueness into that format. To me, those are ones that you need to say create with AI assistance. But again, if you're using the output from the model and it's 90% the model and like 10% you, like, hey, that's your decision and choice, as far as the thing is, if you don't disclaim it, and your customers find out about it, is it going to impact your reputation? If you do disclaim it, and that, you have to think about if your customers find out, or I always think you shouldn't do anything in business if you didn't want your grandmother to know, or if you didn't want to splashed on the front page of the New York Times. If you're comfortable with it, excuse me, and you're fine with it, and you create it, use AI. Sorry. Oh, sorry about that. If AI's your assistant, like, you wouldn't say, hey, if your assistant help you write something, you wouldn't say, oh, and my assistant helped me, if it's your work as well. So just kind of be thinking about that when you put any disclaimer. There are copyright plagiarism checkers. When I talked about Jasper earlier, or Grammarly, those actually, if you use those tools, they have built-in copyright plagiarism checkers. There are also standalone programs. There's some free ones. I don't know how good the quality, you have to kind of look at the reviews and stuff, but you can run them through anything that you get from the AI. You could run it through those kind of copyright plagiarism checkers, either within a tool or as a standalone. Now, the free version of ChatGPT doesn't have that, but you could take any output from that, run it through something like Grammarly or through one of these other checker tools to see if that output, if it checks and catches any kind of direct kind of plagiarism. Like I said, don't use the text as is, and then fact check it. Never, if it ever gives you a statistic or a source or a URL or anything like that, like, check to make sure it's for real. Like, don't trust that it is accurate. Again, for research, I would go to like a regular search engine or your other kind of tools that are designed for research and for sourcing material, and you need that direct source and link back, which you should always be providing link backs to direct sources anyway. I would use a different tool, but if it does give you any output and it's just like, let me just check that, see if you can actually check that through other, through a search engine or something, and find the actual source or check the source that it's citing. Just beware, so kind of be careful of hallucinations. Again, and when it makes up stuff, it is very confident. I would tell you that every model is going to sound like this is actually absolutely the whole truth. And you're like going, wait, but that's where you need your expertise and your knowledge. And you're like going, wait a minute, that does not sound right. That sounds off. Then okay, maybe it's losing that thread, because you won't know from the output. It'll sound like absolutely 100% this is right. It's amazing. It's very confident in its own abilities. Again, don't upload any personal or proprietary confidential information into the model. Even if you check the little thing that says, don't share this information with the model, you can't, I'm just saying, don't upload anything into a public or third party tool unless it's your own proprietary LLM that's behind a wall. Look for the biases, just kind of make sure that you think about that. Especially with images, but even on the tech side, there's all sorts of algorithms. I've heard of ones like hiring biases, but humans have them too. We have biases internal to us, each one of us. So the models was going to have those as well. They're trying to put more and more rules into the model to try to address biases. But that's, we're only as good as people are doing the coding and people putting the data in. And as they find things, they fix them. But there could be things in there that we don't know about yet. And then I said, just make sure it's a rough draft generator. It's not your final draft generator. So don't use it as is. You can use ideas and brainstorm and then create things, and that's great, but don't say, write me a blog post and then post that directly to your website. Because first of all, it's going to sound kind of generic and average. It's going to sound like, because again, it's predictive. It's saying, well, based on what everything else out here, this is kind of the most common things that are said. So you're going to sound average versus, tailoring it to your target customer business or market. So the bottom line is if the LLM can write it, then what value or uniqueness are you adding? Or are you just adding more noise? Because people out there, I'm sure there's content engines that are just going into an LLM, write me a blog post about this, write me one of this, and then generically posting it out there and just generating content to sound like to have it out there. And then they're selling that as a service. But you want to add your uniqueness and value that you bring on top. Again, it's augmenting you as a human, as an expert. It's augmenting and giving you ideas and like brainstorming and providing assistance, but it shouldn't be the end all and like, oh, I just put it in there. Whatever pops out, I post it and I'm good. Because that's not bringing your unique voice to the conversation. All right, that's the end. Sorry. And I know my little snafu, I was hoping to do some actual prompting. Has anyone played with the models? You can come off mute or put in the chat.
We had a couple of comments. Mary Gano has used it and Brandon Hamilton has used it.
Yes, Cindy, I actually used it when I was in the last cohort for the pitch, and so you did your presentation on the 90 seconds to the 5-minute pitch, and so I created my pitch and I put in there, be more concise because I am a little bit wordy sometimes.
That is great. It's a great example. Yeah, and I think it's just kind of playing around with it. If you've never, for those that haven't seen ChatGPT, let me see if I can share my screen again. Sorry. I know we're kind of at time, but if anyone wants to hang out and we can kind of walk through. Oh, let me get rid of this. Pull it up. So when you see, this is just ChatGPT. The key thing is that you're going to see here where it says new chat. You always, and the first when you open it up, it's always going to be a new chat. But that's where I said when it kind of loses, or if you're asking it a whole different kind of for a different output, you should always kind of start a new chat. You shouldn't just keep running in the same thread because one, it's going to lose the context. Two, a prompt earlier, it's going to keep in its memory and keep using that prompt to answer later questions. So then you're going to like, if you're trying to switch personas or switching what you want it to do, then it's going to still remember those earlier prompts and think that's still part of the same conversation. So think about it as a thread or response. On the left here will be where it'll save different prompts that you've done or different threads. And so you can either keep them or delete them, but here's like different ones that you've done. Up here, it'll tell you what version you're in. You should always, on the free version, always be in Chat GPT 3.5, but you could go to an, if you want to upgrade to, 4, that's where you would see it. And then down here is where you put the prompt in. So it's really just like a text, looks like a text box window like you would in any search engine, but it's not a search. It's just a prompt. So if anyone has one you want to put in, or we can go to one, to an earlier one or something. I don't know, but we can do some of the ones from the example. I just don't have them in front of me. But it's amazing how quick it goes. So we can just say act, oops. If you are to be, oops, the marker. I should have put something in here and have already put, you are an expert in email marketing. I was trying to remember what the prompt was I had earlier. Email news records. Blog post about you. I don't know. We'll try that and see. I won't put any limitations or context on it. We'll just see what it comes up with. And then you can hit enter or hit the little up arrow to send the message to the chat GPT. And it's so amazing how fast it'll start. Yeah, so it gives you, and you can ask it for bulleted, you could ask it for, and then you could say, then again, based on this, let me move this window over here. Based on this that it gives you, you may go, okay, that's fine. Then you need to, this is where you would add in your own kind of personal touches, customer stories. This might be a good, again, framework that you can then take, and thank God I didn't put any emojis in there, but he likes to throw a lot of emojis in mine. But then you can take this and modify it, or you can tell it to, so say that was the first one, but you can say, use this same blog post and condense it to 200 words. I don't know, something like that. So it does. Yeah, so then it shortened it down, so then you can yeah, you can say, give me 3 tweets using this blog post. See what it does. And it's putting hashtags in there, so it understands the format of a tweet. It understands that the character limitations. It understands that the hashtags are important in tweets, and we'll bring it back in some emojis. All right, anything else? I know we're kind of at time, but any other questions, Michelle, or comments?
Nothing. Lisa Raleigh says, this is all brand new to me, but very interesting. Thank you for your presentation. Elena Tarver said, I've used it a little, but not yet for my business. If you have, whoops, just lost that. If you have a specific brand voice you want it to reference,
Yes.
do you have to upload that every time?
You would need to tell it every time. Yes, because it won't remember. In a new chat, it's a clean slate, and and at some point it would forget that anyway, even if you were having one big long thread. But you would just tell it, and you don't have to go into details. You could say, use a professional business tone of voice, use a conversational, fun, upbeat tone. I mean, you don't have to go into like all the details of tone, but you would need to give it some kind of feel, and it'll be peppier, happier. It'll use different words. It'll use something, a different word, a little more exciting, or you could say rewrite this to be more upbeat. And if it came back the first time, you could always like give it more tone, saying, hey, rewrite this in a super upbeat style. Like, you can tell it those things. Yeah, you would have to tell it every time what tone you wanted it to be when you start that new conversation or new thread.
Thank you. Brandon Hamilton says, thank you so much for your time and this class! Exclamation point.
Well, I know it's kind of it's not as much hands-on, it's more about but understanding this kind of back end. And I think if I didn't have the internet snafu, we may have had a little more time there at the end, so I apologize. To put in some specific prompts. But again, it's really you playing around with it and just kind of seeing what it can do and understanding how it works on the backside, so you know what you're doing to input in on the front end. I think that's the biggest thing, because you can have it do. I could sit here and just do examples. I could do all the examples that I've listed on that one spread, that one slide. I could put every single one of them in and get output. But if I don't understand how I'm putting it in, and then how you, for your specific business and your specific product or service, tailors it to your what you need, then it's, I mean, I could put examples in, but they would need, it's the best if you can do it yourself for your specific situation in business. And if
Okay.
you, and on the slides, and you get them, if you want to put any of those inputs or prompts and try them into chat, go ahead. I mean, put them in there and see what it gives you. Because it, again, that randomness, it would give us all a little bit different output, but you can kind of see how it's giving different output based on what you put in. So feel free to use those that I've put examples in the slides when you get them. All right.
Excellent. Sandy, thank you so much. My gosh, not only for your time and your enthusiasm, but the research you've done to be able to put this together. So I know a number of us today, I knew the acronyms. I had no idea what they stood for or what, how I was supposed to use it or could use it. So thank you so much for the introduction. And I'm sure many people here feel the exact same way.
Great.
Do
I
you have any
appreciate it.
closing comments for us?
No, I just say, just try it. Like, you got to play around with the models. You got to just experiment. And just know that it's an iterative process. It's a back and forth conversation, and it's a back and forth kind of like if you're talking to your assistant, they're not going to get it right the first time, but you help them kind of refine, reiterate, and then add your own uniqueness. Don't just take the model 100%, but tailor it to you in your business. And then it's a great way to get started and get you kind of that first draft and speed up your production, but you still need to add your own voice and uniqueness to it that it won't have.
Wonderful.
But it's a
Thank
great
you.
tool, like anything else. It's a good tool.
For those of you still on, I would like to bring to your attention, next week we have 2 workshops. Both of them are in the evening. Tuesday evening, we have Understanding Business Taxes, both federal and Tennessee. So that might be of use for you, given we're in tax season now. And then Wednesday evening, we have Am I Ready to Start a Business? So if you're in the planning stages, if you're just planning things out and looking at things, you may want to attend that class and see if there's, excuse me, something you should be looking at that perhaps you have not considered. So thank you all for being here. You will be receiving the video and the slides in the next couple of days. And probably want to take this workshop again, the next couple of quarters, because as Sandy said, everything is changing so rapidly that, in fact, she already warned me that she's going to be probably changing the slides every time she does the workshop. So stay tuned. Sandy, thank you so much. Everyone, have a fabulous rest of your weekend, and may you have much, much success in your business venture. Take care.
Thank you, Michelle, for helping out.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.